The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the most beautiful place in the known universe. Its walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of those inside. Its ceilings showed the stars themselves, spinning slowly overhead like diamonds scattered across black silk. For 10,000 years, the 12 elder species had gathered here to decide the fate of civilizations. Today, the crystals glowed a dull orange. The mood was uncomfortable. Ambassador Vethrak of the Zorani Dominion stood at the center of the hall. His tall, gray body trembled slightly as he spoke. His four eyes moved from face to face, searching for understanding. He found very little. "The Kethvor swarm has returned," he said. His voice echoed in the massive chamber. "Our deep space sensors detected them 3 cycles ago. They are moving toward the Orion Spur." A murmur passed through the gathered representatives. The Kethvor swarm was a nightmare from ancient history. They were not a species in the normal sense. They were a plague, a hunger given form. They moved from world to world, consuming everything: organic matter, minerals, water, atmosphere. They left nothing behind but dead rocks floating in empty space. "How many?" asked Representative Chikari. The insectoid creature clicked its mandibles nervously. Its species had nearly been destroyed by the swarm 2,000 years ago. "We estimate 4 billion individual organisms," Vethrak replied. "Perhaps more. They have been feeding in the outer darkness, growing, breeding." The hall fell silent. 4 billion. The last swarm incursion had numbered only in the millions, and it had taken the combined might of 7 species to stop them. High Arbiter Solen leaned forward in her chair. She was ancient, even by the standards of her people. Her skin was like pale blue paper stretched over delicate bones, but her eyes were sharp and cold. "The Orion Spur," she said slowly. "That is where the humans live, is it not?" Vethrak nodded. "Yes, High Arbiter. The swarm's path takes them directly through human space. At their current speed, they will reach the outer human colonies within 2 years. "Unfortunate," said Representative Thesson of the Velthani hegemony. He was a military creature, covered in natural armor that gleamed like bronze. The humans showed promise. Primitive, yes, but creative. "They have only been traveling between stars for 200 years, added the Chikari representative. "They control perhaps 50 worlds. They cannot possibly defend against the swarm." Vethrak raised one of his 4 hands. "This is why I bring this matter before the council. I propose we offer the humans assistance. We could evacuate their population to safer regions. We could share defensive technologies. We could—" "No." The single word cut through the air like a blade. High Arbiter Solen had spoken. "High Arbiter," Vethrak began. "Surely we cannot simply—" "The humans are not members of the Galactic Accord," Solen interrupted. Her voice was calm but final. "They have not earned the protection of this council. They have not contributed to our collective defense. They have not paid the treaties that bind us together. They are young," Vethrak protested. "They have not had time to—" "Every species in this chamber faced trials before joining the Accord," Solen continued. "The Zorani survived the Crystal Plague. The Velthani endured the Machine Wars. The Chikari rebuilt after the first swarm. These trials made us strong. They proved we were worthy of standing among the stars." She spread her thin arms wide, gesturing to the gathered representatives. "If the humans are truly meant to join us, they will find a way to survive. If they are not," she let the sentence hang in the air, "then the universe will continue without them." Vethrak felt sick. "You are condemning billions of sentient beings to death." "I am allowing nature to take its course," Solen replied. "The strong survive. The weak perish. This has always been true. This will always be true." Representative Thessan shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps a compromise. We could sell them weapons. Not give, but sell. Trade agreements would benefit both." "The motion is denied," Solen said. "The humans will receive no aid from this council. We will observe. We will document. When the swarm has passed, we will assess what remains." She stood, her robes flowing around her like water. "This session is concluded." One by one, the representatives filed out of the Great Hall. Some looked troubled. Others looked relieved. None of them spoke against the High Arbiter's decision. The crystals in the walls had turned a deep, bloody red. Vethrak remained behind, staring at the stars spinning overhead. Somewhere out there, in a small corner of the galaxy, An entire species had just been sentenced to extinction, and they did not even know it yet. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, a young officer named Chen Wei sat in a monitoring station buried deep beneath a mountain. Her job was to listen, to watch, to intercept communications from the wider galaxy and translate them for human understanding. Tonight, she had intercepted something that made her blood run cold. She read the translation 3 times, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. The words were clear. The meaning was undeniable. The Galactic Council, the great powers of the universe, had decided that humanity was not worth saving. They would watch. They would document. They would do nothing else. Chen Wei was 32 years old. She had a mother in Beijing and a brother on the Mars colony. She had friends, dreams, a life she had barely begun to live. And according to the beings who ruled the stars, none of it mattered. She picked up her communicator and called her commanding officer. Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble. She had been trained for crisis. She had been prepared for bad news. But nothing had prepared her for this. "Sir," she said when the connection opened, "we have a situation. Priority Alpha. The Council has abandoned us." Within hours, the message had reached every government on Earth and every colony in human space. Within days, emergency sessions were called. Leaders gathered. Military officers planned. Scientists calculated. The swarm was coming. The galaxy would not help. Humanity had 2 years to prepare for the end of everything. In the halls of power, arguments raged. Some wanted to flee, to scatter into the void and hope the swarm would not follow. Others wanted to surrender, to offer themselves as tribute in exchange for mercy. But slowly, another voice began to rise. It was quiet at first. Then it grew louder. "We fight," the voice said. "We build. We prepare. And when they come for us, we show them what humanity is made of." It was a foolish voice. A desperate voice. A voice that ignored all logic and all odds. It was the most human voice of all. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council turned its attention to other matters. The humans were already forgotten. They were a footnote, a minor tragedy in the long history of the universe. They did not know that they had just made the greatest mistake in 10,000 years. They did not know that humanity was about to wake up, and when humanity woke up angry, the entire galaxy would learn to tremble. 3 years passed. The Galactic Council waited for the screaming to begin. It never came. In the observation chamber of Nexus Prime, a team of Velthani analysts watched their screens with growing confusion. They had expected the usual pattern. When the swarm attacked, species always reacted the same way. First came the panic, distress signals flooding every frequency, desperate pleas for help. Then came the exodus, refugee ships fleeing in all directions, carrying whoever could escape. Finally, came the silence, the terrible, empty silence of a species that no longer existed. The humans had skipped straight to silence, but it was the wrong kind of silence. "Report," commanded Overseer Krath. He was old for a Velthani, his bronze armor dull with age. He had watched 3 species die to the swarm. He knew what extinction looked like. This did not look like extinction. Colony 7 went dark 6 months ago, the analyst reported. No distress signal, no refugee traffic, just nothing. Then Colony 12, then Colony 23. One by one, they all stopped transmitting. "Show me the pattern," Krath said. The analyst pulled up a map of human space. Red dots marked silent colonies. Green dots marked active ones. As Krath watched, another green dot turned red. "They are retreating," he said slowly, pulling back toward their home system. "Yes, Overseer, but that is not what concerns me." The analyst zoomed the map toward the edge of human territory. "Look at the swarm." Krath looked, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something like fear. The swarm had stopped moving. For 3 years, they had been advancing steadily toward human space. Now they sat at the border, unmoving. 4 billion hungry organisms, frozen in place. "Why have they stopped?" Krath asked. "We do not know," the analyst admitted. "Our sensors detect weapons fire in that region. Massive energy discharges, nuclear signatures. But we cannot get close enough to see what is happening. Send a scout ship. We have sent 12, Overseer. None have returned." Krath stared at the map. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to die quietly while the council watched and took notes. Something had gone very wrong. On the border world of Kellis IV, a Zorani merchant named Vethlos conducted his business as usual. His species were traders by nature. They went everywhere, sold everything, and heard all the gossip of the galaxy. Vethlos had been selling supplies to the outer colonies for decades. He knew humans better than most aliens. He liked them. They were strange creatures, soft and fragile, with only 2 eyes and no natural weapons. But they laughed easily and worked hard, and never seemed to know when they were beaten. Today, a human freighter had docked at the station. Its captain was a woman named Sarah, with gray hair and hard eyes. Vethlos had known her for years. She had always been friendly before. Today, she was different. "You look tired, my friend," Vethlos said as they shared a drink in the station cantina. "The war goes badly?" Sarah laughed. It was not a happy sound. "The war goes. The council believes your species is dying," Vethlos said carefully. "They say the swarm will consume you within the year. The council can believe whatever it wants." Vethlos leaned closer. "Sarah, I am your friend. Tell me truly, what is happening out there?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She stared into her drink as if it held answers. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "Do you know what humans do when we are cornered, Vethlos? When there is no escape? When everything seems hopeless? You flee? You surrender?" "No." Sarah looked up. Her eyes were burning with something fierce. "We dig in. We get angry. And we fight until there is nothing left to fight with." She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "The council thinks we are dying. The council is wrong. We are just getting started." She finished her drink and stood to leave. At the door, she paused. "Tell your people something, Vethlos. Tell them to stay away from human space. Things are about to get very loud." Back on Nexus Prime, the council grew nervous. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Human ships were buying everything they could find. Metal, fuel, weapons, components, medical supplies. They paid in gold, in technology, in favors. They stripped the black markets bare. And still, the silence continued. High Arbiter Solen called an emergency session. The Great Hall was filled with worried representatives. The crystals in the walls flickered between orange and red, unable to decide on a single emotion. "What do we know?" Solen demanded. "Very little," admitted Intelligence Chief Morath. "Human space is completely closed to us. Any ship that crosses the border does not return. We detect massive industrial activity near their home star. They appear to be building something." "Building what?" "Unknown. But the scale is..." Morath hesitated. "The scale is unprecedented. Energy output suggests construction projects larger than anything in council history." "Impossible," said Representative Chakari. "They do not have the resources. They do not have the knowledge." "Apparently they do," Morath replied. Solen felt cold. She had ruled the council for 300 years. She had seen species rise and fall. She had always known what would happen next. For the first time, she did not know. "Continue monitoring," she ordered. "Report any changes immediately." Deep in the Sol system, past the silent colonies and the burning borders, humanity worked. They worked in the shipyards of Mars and the factories of Earth. They worked in the asteroid mines and the orbital platforms. They worked day and night, without rest, without complaint. Chen Wei was no longer a young officer in a listening station. She was now a commander in the United Earth Defense Coalition. She had watched her species transform over 3 years. The petty conflicts were forgotten. The old hatreds were buried. When extinction came knocking, humanity discovered something powerful. They discovered unity. The shipyards produced warships at impossible speed. Not elegant vessels like the Council used. These were brutal machines. Ugly, functional, covered in weapons and armor and fury. Scientists unlocked technologies they had only dreamed of before. Engineers built things that should not have been possible. Soldiers trained until they dropped, then got up and trained some more. And at the center of it all, in a secret facility orbiting Jupiter, a weapon took shape. It had no name yet. The workers simply called it the Answer. When the swarm came for Earth, humanity would be ready. In the observation chamber, Overseer Krath watched another green dot turn red on the map. The humans were almost gone now. Only their home system remained active. "It is almost over," his analyst said. Soon there will be nothing left. Krath shook his head slowly. I do not think so. Overseer? The swarm has not moved in 6 months. 4 billion organisms, sitting at the border, doing nothing. Why? The analyst had no answer. I will tell you why, Krath said. They are afraid. The swarm is afraid of whatever is waiting for them in that system. And if the swarm is afraid, he turned away from the screen, then perhaps we should be afraid too. The silence continued. But it was not the silence of death. It was the silence of something waking up. The swarm moved again. After 18 months of stillness, the 4 billion organisms suddenly surged forward. But they were not heading toward human space anymore. They had turned. They were racing toward the heart of the galaxy, toward the Council worlds, toward Nexus Prime itself. Panic spread faster than light. Emergency broadcasts flooded every channel. Colony worlds began evacuation procedures. Military fleets scrambled to form defensive lines. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the crystal walls had turned pure black. Fear filled the air like poison. How is this possible? High Arbiter Solon demanded. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. The swarm should have been satisfied with human space. They should have fed there for decades. Intelligence Chief Morath stood before her, his face pale. The swarm did not feed in human space. High Arbiter, our latest scans show that human worlds remain intact. The colonies are empty, but not consumed. Then what drove them away? We do not know. But something in human space hurt them. Badly. The swarm we detected 3 years ago numbered 4 billion. The swarm heading toward us now numbers less than 3 billion. They have lost over 1 billion organisms. The hall fell silent. 1 billion swarm creatures. Dead. Killed by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. How long until they reach the core systems? Solon asked. 6 days. 6 days. The Council had 6 days to prepare for the largest swarm incursion in galactic history. 6 days to gather their fleets, coordinate their defenses, and pray to whatever gods they believed in. Fleet Admiral Thesson of the Velthani took command of the combined galactic armada. He was the finest military mind in Council space. He had won 100 battles. He had never lost, but as he looked at the numbers, he knew this battle could not be won. The armada consisted of 8,000 warships from 12 species. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. It was not enough. The swarm would wash over them like a wave over sand. We will fight, Thesson told his officers. We will make them pay for every system they take. But I will not lie to you. This is a battle for time, not victory. We fight so that civilians can escape. We fight so that something survives. His officers nodded grimly. They understood. They were going to die. On the bridge of his flagship, the Velthani dreadnought, indomitable, Thesson watched the swarm approach on his tactical display. 3 billion points of light, moving like a living cloud. In 40 hours, they would reach the first defense line. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, I am detecting an anomaly. What kind of anomaly? Hyperspace disturbance. Something is coming out of faster than light travel. Multiple contacts. Very large. Thesson frowned. Reinforcements from the outer colonies? No, sir. The signature is wrong. These ships are coming from. The officer paused, confusion in his voice. From human space. The tactical display flickered. New contacts appeared. 1, then 10, then 100. They kept coming, pouring out of hyperspace like water from a broken dam. Magnify, Thesson ordered. The main screen shifted, and Thesson felt his heart stop. The ship that dominated the screen was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was 12 kilometers long from front to back. Its hull was dark gray, covered in scars and burn marks. Weapons bristled from every surface. It looked like it had been built for one purpose and one purpose only: war. Behind it came more ships, carriers the size of small moons, battleships covered in armor plating, destroyers moving in perfect formation, frigates darting between the larger vessels like predators hunting prey. Count them, Thesson whispered. His officer's voice shook. 2,000 warships, Admiral. No, 3,000. They are still arriving. 4,000, 5,000. The human fleet kept coming. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Admiral Chen Wei stood with her hands clasped behind her back. She was 50 years old now. Her hair had gone completely gray. Her face was lined with the weight of 3 years of war, but her eyes burned with cold fire. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." Her communications officer nodded. "Channel open." "Admiral." Chen Wei looked at the screen. She saw the council fleet ahead. She saw the swarm beyond. She thought of all the friends she had lost, all the soldiers who had died, all the sacrifices humanity had made while the galaxy watched and did nothing. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Defense Coalition," she said. Her voice was calm and hard as steel. "We are not here to ask for permission. We are not here to beg for help. We are here to finish what we started." She paused, letting her words sink in. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council decided that humanity was not worth saving. You left us alone in the dark with the swarm at our door. You expected us to die quietly. You were wrong. On the Indomitable. Thessan listened in stunned silence. Around him, his crew had stopped working. They stared at the human ships, filling their screens. "We fought the swarm for 3 years, Chen Wei continued. "We bled for 3 years. We lost millions of our people, but we did not break. We did not surrender. And now we are here to end this." Her flagship, the Prometheus Unbound, moved forward. The rest of the human fleet followed in perfect formation. To the Galactic Council, "Stand aside. This is our fight. You made that clear when you abandoned us. We will handle our own problems." She cut the channel. Thessan found his voice at last. "Get me a direct line to the High Arbiter. Now." On Nexus Prime, Solen watched the human fleet on her screen. Her face was pale. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair until her knuckles turned white. "High Arbiter," Thessan's voice came through. "What are your orders?" Solen did not answer. She could not answer. For 300 years, she had ruled the council. She had always known what to do. She had always been in control. Now she watched a species she had dismissed as children deploy a military force that rivaled her own. She watched ships that should not exist move with perfect coordination. She watched humanity arrive for war. "High Arbiter," Thessan repeated. "The humans are advancing toward the swarm. Do we support them? Do we engage?" "No," Solen said at last. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We stay back. We watch. She swallowed hard. "We let them fight." On the Prometheus Unbound, Chen Wei watched the council fleet pull back. She felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just cold determination. "All ships," she said. "Battle stations. Weapons hot. Today we finish this." Behind her, 5,000 human warships prepared for war. Ahead of her, 3 billion swarm organisms waited. Chen Wei smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You wanted to see what humanity could do," she said softly. "Watch closely. You are about to find out." The first missiles launched. The first energy beams fired. The final battle had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle began with fire. 10,000 missiles launched from human ships in the first 30 seconds. They streaked across the void like angry stars, leaving trails of light behind them. The swarm reacted instantly, sending millions of smaller organisms to intercept. Explosions lit up the darkness. Nuclear fire bloomed in the cold of space. On the Indomitable, Fleet Admiral Thessan watched with his mouth hanging open. He had studied warfare his entire life. He had seen countless battles. He had never seen anything like this. "They are not stopping," his tactical officer said. "The missiles keep coming." It was true. Human carriers were launching without pause. Wave after wave of missiles, thousands every minute. The swarm interceptors were dying by the millions, but they could not stop the flood. "That is not possible," Thessan muttered. "No species can maintain that rate of fire. They will run out of ammunition in minutes." But the minutes passed, and the missiles kept coming. On the Prometheus Unbound, Chen Wei stood at the center of organized chaos. Officers shouted reports. Screens flashed with data. The entire ship shook as its main guns fired again and again. "Status on the missile boats?" she demanded. "Magazines at 60%, Admiral." "Resupply drones are cycling continuously." Chen Wei nodded. 3 years of preparation. 3 years of building weapons and stockpiling ammunition. 3 years of turning their entire civilization into a war machine. This was the result. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "All battleships, advance." target their capital organisms. The heart of the swarm was protected by creatures the size of mountains. Living battleships, covered in natural armor and organic weapons. They had destroyed entire fleets before. They had never faced humans. The human battleships moved forward in a wedge formation. Their armor was thick. Their weapons were heavy. They were built to take punishment and keep fighting. The first swarm capital organism fired. Biological projectiles the size of buildings slammed into the lead battleship. The ship's armor cracked. Atmosphere vented into space. 300 crew members died in seconds. The ship did not retreat. It did not slow down. It kept advancing, its guns blazing, until it was close enough to ram its main cannon into the creature's flesh. Then it fired everything it had. The capital organism exploded from the inside. Insane, Representative Checkeri whispered from the council observation post. They are completely insane. Ambassador Vethrak shook his head slowly. No, they are human. The battle raged for hours. Human ships died by the hundreds. But for every human ship lost, 1,000 swarm creatures perished. The humans fought with weapons the council had never imagined. Kinetic accelerators fired metal rods at impossible speeds. The rods hit swarm organisms with the force of nuclear bombs, punching through armor and flesh alike. Plasma cannons sprayed burning death across the enemy formations. Swarm creatures melted and burned and died screaming in frequencies only sensors could detect. And then there was the weapon the humans called Prometheus fire. It was simple, really. Just antimatter, the most destructive substance in the universe. Matter and antimatter meeting, converting into pure energy. A single gram could destroy a city. The humans had built bombs containing kilograms of the stuff. Volunteer pilots carried the bombs in small, fast ships. They flew directly into the hearts of swarm clusters. They did not expect to survive. They did not try to escape. They simply flew until they reached their targets, pressed the trigger, and vanished in light. On the Indomitable, Thesan watched a human pilot fly his ship into a swarm capital organism. The explosion was visible from 1,000,000 kilometers away. When it faded, the capital organism was gone. So were 10,000 smaller swarm creatures around it. They sacrificed themselves, Thesan said. His voice was hollow. They throw away their lives like they do not matter? His aide asked. No. Thesan turned away from the screen. He could not watch anymore. Like nothing matters except victory. The council had always believed that survival was the highest goal. Species fought to protect themselves, to preserve their kind, to continue existing. That was rational. That was logical. Humans did not fight to survive. They fought to win. And they would burn themselves to ashes if that was what victory required. 6 hours into the battle, the tide began to turn. The swarm had lost over half its numbers. The capital organisms were nearly all destroyed. The smaller creatures were disorganized, leaderless, dying in waves as human ships hunted them down. But the human fleet was bleeding too. 2,000 ships were gone, destroyed or too damaged to fight. 2,000 ships meant hundreds of thousands of dead, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, friends and lovers, all gone. Chen Wei felt each loss like a knife in her heart. She had sent those people to die. She had given the orders. Their blood was on her hands. But she did not stop. She could not stop. Not now. Not when they were so close. Admiral, her tactical officer reported. The swarm is attempting to retreat. They are pulling back toward deep space. No, Chen Wei said. Her voice was ice. They do not get to run. All ships, pursue. Nothing escapes. Nothing survives. The human fleet surged forward. Fresh ships replaced damaged ones. Wounded vessels kept fighting as long as they could fire a single weapon. The pursuit was relentless, merciless, total. For the next 2 hours, humanity hunted the swarm across space. They chased them into asteroid fields and nebulas, and the cold darkness between stars. They found every cluster, every survivor, every last creature, and they killed them all. In the observation chamber on Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Solen watched the final moments. A single swarm capital organism, the last of its kind, surrounded by human ships. It was wounded, dying, trying desperately to escape. A human battleship moved in front of it. The ship was barely functional. Its hull was torn open. Fires burned across its surface. It should have been retreating to save its crew. Instead, it accelerated directly into the swarm creature. The collision was catastrophic. Both the ship and the organism were destroyed instantly. 2,000 human crew members died to kill one last enemy. Why? Solen whispered. Why would they do that? Vethrak stood beside her. His gray face was wet with tears. Because they wanted to make sure, he said. They wanted to make absolutely sure that it was dead, that it could never threaten anyone again. The tactical displays across the galaxy showed the same thing. Empty space where the swarm had been. Debris and bodies and silence. It was over. 3 billion swarm organisms. The terror that had haunted the galaxy for millennia. The plague that had consumed 11 civilizations. Gone. Destroyed. Wiped from existence. And humanity had done it alone. On the Prometheus Unbound, Chen Wei allowed herself to breathe. Her ship was damaged. Her fleet was broken. 40% of her people were dead, but they had won. Admiral, her communications officer said quietly, the Council is hailing us. The High Arbiter wishes to speak with you. Chen Wei closed her eyes. She thought of her brother, dead at Colony 12. She thought of her friends, burned to ash in Prometheus fire attacks. She thought of the 3 years of darkness, fighting and dying while the galaxy watched. Tell the High Arbiter, she said slowly, that I will speak with her in person, on Nexus Prime, when I am ready. Yes, Admiral. Chen Wei looked out at the debris field that had once been the swarm. Victory. They had achieved victory, but it did not feel like she had imagined. It felt empty, cold. The galaxy was safe. The swarm was gone, and humanity had paid a price that no one would ever fully understand. She touched the glass of her viewport, looking at the stars beyond. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it, but the war had changed them. Humanity would never be the innocent species that had first reached for the stars. They had become something else, something harder, something dangerous, and now it was time to show the Council exactly what that meant. The Prometheus Unbound limped into orbit above Nexus Prime. The great warship was barely recognizable. Its hull was torn and blackened. Whole sections were open to space. Emergency crews worked desperately to keep critical systems running. Of the 3,000 crew members who had started the battle, only 1,900 remained, but it still flew. And it still carried its admiral. Chen Wei looked at herself in the mirror of her quarters. She was 50 years old, but she looked 70. The war had taken everything from her. Her youth, her health, her future. During the battle, a piece of shrapnel had torn through the bridge. It had caught her in the spine. The medics had saved her life, but her legs were gone. She would never walk again. She did not care. Walking was for peacetime. She had delivered victory. That was enough. Admiral, her aide said from the doorway. Your transport is ready. The Council awaits. Chen Wei nodded. 2 soldiers lifted her into a hover chair. The chair was military design, simple and functional. It would carry her into the halls of power. She would not stand before the Council, but she would face them all the same. The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 12 elder species had gathered. Observers from 100 lesser civilizations watched from the galleries above. This was the most important meeting in 10,000 years. Everyone wanted to see the humans. The crystal walls glowed soft blue as Chen Wei entered. The color of respect. The color of awe. The gathered aliens parted before her like water, creating a path to the center of the hall. High Arbiter Solen stood waiting. She was dressed in her finest robes. Her face was carefully composed, but her eyes betrayed her. She was afraid. Good, Chen Wei thought. She should be. Admiral Chen Wei, Solen said. Her voice echoed through the hall. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to Nexus Prime. Your victory over the Kethvor swarm is the greatest military achievement in recorded history. You have saved countless billions of lives. Chen Wei said nothing. She simply waited. Solen continued, her voice growing more formal. In recognition of your service, the Council wishes to extend an invitation. Humanity is hereby offered full membership in the Galactic Accord. You will have a seat at this table. Your voice will be heard among the stars. A murmur ran through the hall. This was unprecedented. Species normally waited centuries for such an offer. Humanity had earned it in 3 years. Solen was not finished. Furthermore, the Council offers reparations for our failure to provide assistance during your time of need. Technology, resources, medical support. Whatever humanity requires, we will provide. We wish to begin a new chapter in our relationship, one built on mutual respect and cooperation. She spread her arms wide, a gesture of openness. What say you, Admiral Chen Wei? Will humanity join us among the stars? The hall fell silent. Every eye focused on the small human woman in her hover chair. She looked so fragile compared to the mighty beings around her, so breakable. But when she spoke, her voice filled the entire hall. No. The silence became absolute. Solen's face went pale. Admiral, surely you understand what we are offering. Full membership. Complete acceptance. Everything your species could want. I understand perfectly, Chen Wei replied. And my answer is no. She guided her hover chair forward, closer to the High Arbiter. The soldiers around her tensed, but she waved them back. 3 years ago, I sat in a monitoring station on Earth. I intercepted a transmission from this very hall. I heard your council decide that my species was not worth saving. I heard you dismiss billions of lives as unimportant. I heard you sentence us to death without a second thought. Her voice grew harder. Do you remember what you said, High Arbiter? You said that trials make species strong. You said that the weak perish and the strong survive. You said that if we were meant to join you, we would find a way. Solen could not meet her eyes. We found a way, Chen Wei continued. We fought your nightmare for 3 years. We lost millions of our people. My brother died at Colony 12. My best friend flew her ship into a swarm capital organism because she knew it was the only way to kill it. Everywhere I look, I see the faces of people who will never come home. She gestured to the window, where human warships still held position in orbit. Their weapons were powered down, but they were there, watching. And now you offer us membership? Friendship? Respect? Chen Wei shook her head slowly. You had your chance to stand with us. You chose to watch instead. You chose to document our extinction for your archives. She turned her chair to face the entire hall. Hundreds of alien faces stared back at her. Hear me now, all of you. Humanity will not join your accord. We will not take your technology or your resources or your apologies. We owe you nothing. You owe us everything. Admiral, please, Solen said. We made a mistake. We admit this. But surely we can move forward together. Forward? Chen Wei laughed. But there was no humor in it. You want to move forward? Then listen carefully. Because I will only say this once. She raised her voice so that everyone could hear. We are going home. We are going to bury our dead. We are going to rebuild our worlds. We are going to mourn the people we lost while you sat here in your crystal hall and did nothing. She paused, letting the words sink in. And when you need help, and you will need help someday, you can send a message to Earth. You can ask for our assistance. You can beg if you like. Her eyes swept across the gathered representatives. Zorani, Velthani, Chikari, all the great powers of the galaxy, all of them silent. Maybe we will answer, she said. Maybe we will remember that the Zorani ambassador tried to save us. Maybe we will remember that some of you had doubts. Maybe we will choose to be merciful. She turned back to Solen. Or maybe we will do what you did. Maybe we will watch. Maybe we will document. Maybe we will let nature take its course. The High Arbiter's face was gray. You would condemn billions to death for revenge? No, Chen Wei said quietly. We are not like you. When the time comes, we will probably help. We will save your people, even though you would not save ours. Because that is who we are. That is who we have always been. She began to guide her chair toward the exit, but you will always wonder. Every time you face a crisis, you will send your message to Earth, and you will wait for a response. And you will remember this day. You will remember that you had the chance to be our friends, and you threw it away. She reached the door and paused one final time. The galaxy you built is cold and cruel. Species rise and fall, and nobody cares. The strong survive and the weak perish. That is what you taught us. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow it carried through the entire hall. We learned that lesson well. Perhaps too well. You created something when you abandoned us. Something hard. Something that remembers. Something that will never forget who stood with us and who stood aside. She looked at them all one last time. Congratulations, Council. You wanted to see what humanity could do. Now you know. I hope you can live with the answer. And then, she was gone. The human fleet withdrew from Nexus Prime that day. They flew back to their wounded worlds, their empty colonies, their grieving families. They began the long work of rebuilding. In the Great Hall, the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. The crystal walls had turned dark gray, the color of shame. High Arbiter Solen remained in her chair long after everyone else had left. She stared at the stars spinning overhead and thought about what she had done, what the Council had done, what they had failed to do. Humanity had come to the galaxy as children, eager and innocent. They had left as something else entirely, something the Council did not fully understand, something that frightened them. The war was over. The swarm was destroyed. The galaxy was safe, but the stars felt colder now. And every species in the Council knew, deep in their hearts, that the universe had changed forever. Humanity was out there, watching, remembering, and they would never, ever forget.